now?
You know what? My grandfather was a really big boxing fan, and you know, I grew up watching a lot of fights. You know, I could remember as far as back, you know, when Ray Leonard beat Tommy Hearns. You know, like I really grew up just around the sport, and I was always an athlete. I played high school basketball, I played football, and I played baseball. And I hurt my knee my senior year of high school, and I always loved boxing, and I, like, you know, played around with it in the street, but I wasn't serious about it. And once I hurt my knee, I kind of realized that basketball wasn't going to be it for me, even though I was, you know, I was on my way to college. And I just started boxing. And, you know, it was tough to box when I had a full-time job and I was going to college. So I never, like, turned pro or anything, but I just did it just because I liked it. And I would just go to the gym and just spar different guys and just learn. And, you know, I was a little older after high school. Obviously, I was 18, 19, so I knew I wasn't going to be a professional fighter, but I knew it was something that I always wanted to get into. And I wanted to box myself just so I could know what it would be like to train somebody one day. I got a friend of mine named Daryl Lamontre, and he told me, he said, man, the first guy you ever train is going to be a world champion, and everybody's not going to believe it. And it's real funny, man, because I really do think Julian's going to be a world champion. And when I first saw him box, I'm like, this kid's good, but he needs a lot of work. And I know he probably took that personal. Like, who's this guy telling me that? You know, he would throw one jab, you know, he was real stiff. He was more like a tough street kid. And I saw him box in the Philadelphia Golden Gloves maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. That's how long ago it was. And I knew that I had to gain his confidence. And I would ask him things like, well, because Julian was 77-10 as an amateur. And the knock on him was, in our area, you know, he can beat everybody up in the gyms. He can win the Philly Golden Gloves, and he can win regionals, but he's not winning nationals. So I asked him, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on with you? Why aren't you doing better on the national scene? So he really didn't have an answer for me. So then I would ask him stuff like, how long do you run? Do you run wind sprints? Do you run tempo? You know, I would ask him, and he said, I just run. I don't have a time. I don't know how fast I'm running. I don't know how many miles I'm doing. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I asked him, I said, well, do you diet correctly? And he said, man, you know, I don't tell anybody this, you know, but I kind of take citrate, a laxative, to make weight. So I'm like, man, that can kill you. You know, you're going to ruin your insides doing that. I said, you got to diet correctly. You know, when he comes from you know, a tough background where maybe he didn't have the money to, like, you know, go to Whole Foods and do things like that. And the last thing you know, I didn't want to interfere, because Julian's had two coaches, me and his first coach, and I would ask him, like, do you guys do pad work? Do you do anything? Because I would go to the gym just to look at him, just to observe him from far, and he would just box and, you know, do some push-ups and sit-ups and go home, you know. And I'm like, you know, and, you know, he told me, he said, man, I probably got pad work maybe like 4 or 5 times in my whole life. You know, he was boxing since he was 12 years old.
Just put him in the ring and just let him go.
Away on those tournaments, you know, and the guys are getting their punches off real fast, and he's not able to do it, you know. And I'm like, wow, this guy was 77-10 with no resources, you know. He never took a vitamin or anything. So I just kind of just made it my own special project. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't Butterbean. The kid can naturally fight his butt off, you know what I mean? But I was just saying, I just knew he had a high upside. You know, I'm like, man, he has a tremendous upside because he's doing this well. He was ranked all the way to 3 in the country at 152 pounds. And I'm like, he's doing all of this with no resources. He wasn't taking vitamins, he wasn't dieting, he wasn't running correctly. I don't like to use the term strength and conditioning, but he was, you know, he really wasn't doing anything in that. He was just boxing, shadow boxing, and going home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I knew he had a really high upside. So I took it upon myself, you know, I said, you know what? I'm gonna help this kid out, man, because I think that you know, I know that I don't have a lot of experience as a professional trainer. This was 4 years ago. I said, but I got a lot of knowledge in boxing, and I'm going to help him. You know, and slowly but surely, you know, I would tell him certain things. And you know, in his first fight that he had with me, I told him how guys. Well, I don't really want to say it because one of his opponents may pick up on it, but he knocked the guy out in like 28 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And from that point on, we kind of had a confidence in each other. So, you know, it kind of took off running it at that time.
All the other blinds.
And that's the reason why I came out here, Mike, because as good as a fighter as Julian is, and he's kind of, you know, one of the hottest prospects around at this time,
Yeah.
I knew that it was a weakness as far as I knew something was lacking in his nutrition. You know, it's things that I know about him that I see that nobody else was able to see.
Sure.
So when Victor approached me, you know, when we became cool, and actually I got the Virgil Hunter is the first person that told me how good Victor was, you know, so I always had it in my mind he was really good at nutrition. And he took Julian's blood, and some of the things that I suspected to be wrong was wrong as far as deficiencies, because when you got these kids working out for 2-3 hours a day, and then, you know,
Yeah.
and they're not on any type of supplements to replenish what they're
No
losing,
minerals, anything.
they're going to have a deficiency in minerals. And I noticed he would keep getting sick every time he would cut weight. You know what I mean? And I'm not a sports scientist, but I know that something's wrong. He would always catch a cold. He would always get a cough. He would get sick every time. I mean, he's 15-0, and every fight, the same exact thing would happen 2 weeks out before a fight. So I knew that there was some type of problem. And, you know, and he had little blotches on his skin, and I'm like wondering what's wrong. And Victor kind of, you know, helped us with that and told me what he was lacking in certain areas. And then now the problem, you know, is corrected, and you know, and throughout camp he has less bad days. Because if you film a guy and watch a guy work every day, he'll have days where he's sluggish. He'll have days when he's sparring where he's not on, and that's because he's losing so much stuff. You know what I mean? So now, throughout a camp, he has less of those kind of days. You know, because it's difficult when you got to run 5 o'clock in the morning and then go back in the gym and spar. You know, 6 to 10 rounds.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult. You're not going to get, you know. The general public, they just see the finished product, but they don't see what goes on in between those 6 to 8 weeks building up to the fight. And I would notice there would be days where he would be extremely sluggish. So I knew something wasn't right, and he's never pulled out of a fight. You know what I mean? So we would kind of just fight through it on our own. You know what I mean? Just from, you know, just the little knowledge that I had as far as, you know, just building up his immune system and things like that. But taking Victor's supplements, it helps with all of those kind of, everything kind of coincides now. So now I see a difference in him. Even when he's cutting weight, he doesn't have like that weak day where he's like, man, I can't do anything, man. I don't want to spar today. He's good now, you know. What? It's funny because I had a friend that just emailed me and said, are you sure you guys want to deal with Victor? And here's the thing, man. The only thing that we take with Victor is things that anybody can buy online from the SNAC.com stuff. There's no gels, there's no needles, there's no secret waivers where we're saying, well, you can't ask me what this is, but you'll pass any test. None of that stuff is going on. Everything that we take literally is something that somebody could buy over the counter. You know what I mean? So that, and I'm not taking anything that's not right. You know, I'm not going to advise my guys to take anything that's not right. I respect Virgil Hunter's opinion, and he about 4 years ago, he told me that Victor, you know, was a change guy, and you know, he kind of gave me a stamp of approval. And the last thing that I noticed about Victor was that he's the only nutritionist that's pushing for VADA. And
Right.
everybody is like this little whisper in boxing that nobody wants to come out and say, but VADA, Margaret Goodman and VADA is like the most legitimate testing. I don't want to insult anybody, but they're the most legitimate testing agency in boxing.
Transparent.
If it's VADA, then it's like, you know, it's good. They've caught so many people that nobody wants to get tested by VADA anymore. You know, that's like a dirty secret in boxing. Like, no, you know, I don't want to deal with VADA. You know what I mean? They're ruining too many fights. You know, and like I said, man, I educate myself. I went to school for criminal justice, but I educate myself on this stuff because I'm going to be in it. And you also helped me out a lot with I don't know if I'm gonna say it right, the carbonite isotope testing, as far as the testosterone and things like that, and VADA test for that. So, you know, once I saw all of that, and you know, I said, you know what, I guess the guy couldn't be half bad, but I didn't go out seeking his help. He approached me at Julian's fight in December with Orlando Lara. He saw how I was replenishing him. And he was like, man, that's exactly what we do. You know, that's really good. And, you know, give me a number, we'll talk. And I guess he did some research on Julian and saw that he was a good fighter at the weigh-in on the Devin Alexander, Sean Porter undercard. Paulie Malignaggi fought Zab Judah. Julian fought Orlando Lara that night. And he was really impressed. And then he sent me some stuff, and, you know, and just things just went from there. And we just finally had some time to get out here and do some training. I hit the pads with Julian in there yesterday, and it was difficult. You know what I mean? It was nothing that we couldn't handle, but it was definitely, you felt the difference. We were elevated.
Yeah.
You know, you know, he told us we were over 10,000 feet. You know, I went in the hyperbaric chamber. I know that puts the pure oxygen in your body and it helps you heal. You know, it's really important to be able to recover in boxing because you're depleting yourself so much. I even went in the hyperbaric chamber this morning because it's a task for me to constantly, you know, wake up with these guys and get beat on in the gym, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every single day. And then, you know, then you gotta go home and have a normal family life. So it's a task for me also. So I went in the hyperbaric chamber and you can feel the difference, you know? So I like it. You know, this was like the little piece that we were missing in our careers. You know what I mean? These little teeny things as far as, you know, having access to a hyperbaric chamber and the dome and things like that. So it was good. And with boxing, these young guys, you have to earn their confidence. So when you tell them something, it has to work. Because if it doesn't work, they're not going to trust you.
Sure.
So I've always been good at that in my life, and I don't know, man. Some people just, you know, just have certain abilities, and like I said, I've always been able to be really analytical but fair, and I've always been able to assess a problem and be able to solve it.